Okay, so we're looking at Roy Station Coffee Shop. Roy is Roy Muratsune. That was originally his gasoline station. So we had Georgia's service station on the other block, and then we have Roy's station here dispensing gasoline. And so Roy's daughter, Carol Rast, and her husband, Frank Rast, turned that into a seismically retrofitted gas station and coffee shop. And that's where they allowed us to use that facility as an incident command post in the event of a disaster. So our thanks to the Rast family. Their daughter, Jasmine, actually is the manager of the Roy Station Coffee Shop.
This is at 5th and Jackson, which is now what everybody would consider to be the center of Japantown. The historic center was 6th and Jackson, but it's migrated to 5th and Jackson, 1 block away, not very far. But if somebody says, go to Japantown, this is the place to go. And as Rich pointed out, this is probably the safest building in Japantown. And it's probably, it has both a historic aspect to it, but it also, it's also one of the safest ones. So who goes to Roy Station? So we get people, the people who live in Japantown will wander down to Roy Station and run into somebody and chat. And but we'll also get people coming into Japantown to sit out at Roy Station on a nice non-pandemic Saturday or Sunday. There'll be lots of tables out here, people sitting both inside the gates and outside. And we'll even have police officers come by and hang out and have some coffee. So if you want to go meet somebody, or sort of bend somebody's ear, this is the place to go.
So we're looking northbound on 5th Street. Jeff, you mentioned it was probably the most seismically safe building. I wanted to ask you, Jim, after the remodeling, is the annex also seismically retrofitted?
Just looking straight up, those trees that are in Blossom, the building next to Roy's is also owned by Roy's family, and Roy takes care of those trees. As old as he is, his daughter, his son-in-law, his grandkids all yell at him, but he'll still get on a ladder to prune those things. The guy's an icon. Anyway, yes, the Buddhist church gym was seismically retrofitted in 2015-16, I think it was. It was built in 1959 in a construction technique called tilt-up. All the walls are concrete. They were all poured flat on the ground, either there or someplace else and trucked in, and literally tilted up. And it was the 1977, is it Slimer earthquake that showed the early design efforts of tilt-ups was not healthy, because if a wall went, the roof went. If the roof went, the walls went. So it's all braced now, and it's a health safe place for us to be in. It was not before. When we get up the block, we can talk more about the Buddhist church.
So the building he's talking about is the rectangular parallel pipe, the blocky white building across the street. And this holds about 500 people. This is the biggest meeting place in Japantown. So we will hold the Day of Remembrance in 2021. This will be on Valentine's Day, someday around February 19th, where we remember the day or the days when the Japanese Americans were rounded up during World War II and sent out via train, mostly to internment camps. So there'll be a community-wide event. There'll be people parked both up and down both sides of the street, and perhaps down the middle if they can get the police force to go do it. But that will bring several hundred people in, including the politically active people. So we're reaching out to the Muslim community, because they're being discriminated against a lot during the remembrance of what happened to the Japanese and Japanese Americans.
If we can focus on that bench right in front of you, the granite bench, that's called an ikoi no ba.
Up past the shadow of the, right there.
Right there. Yeah, that there are about 11 of those scattered throughout Japantown. if the students go down there, they'll see them on almost every block, and there are historical facts and images etched into the granite on them. And it provides a great source of history for visitors to Japantown. When we look around, if you spin around, you'll also see one of the informational panels. Keep going.
This one?
More.
Keep going.
Rotate more so it's 180 from where you were.
Yeah, it should be coming into view.
Right there?
That's one of them
There it
right
is.
there,
Oh, right
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also, hey, I see somebody's hair.
It's my daughter.
Those are also a great source of historical information about Japantown.
Yeah,
It's one of the three remaining Japantowns in the country: San Francisco, LA, and San Jose.
Yeah, I was on the Japantown Community Congress as the Buddhist Church's rep when we did those, and that was state money that funded all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
From
that group, that group that Jim and Rich are talking about, it was an all-volunteer group of people in the community. Few of them lived in the community, but this was still their community, and they were able to get some grant money from the state of California because for the 3 Japantowns in California.
Yeah, I'd like to mention that bent spire over on the right. That's the Japanese American timeline.
Catty corner from where you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's straight up.
So there are 3 different monuments on that corner. The spire represents, as Jeff mentioned, the February 19th, 1942, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which ordered the incarceration of Japanese Americans off the West Coast from Canada to Mexico to get them away from the Pacific Ocean. This was after Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese. And the sentiment across the country is that the Japanese immigrants were going to help the Japanese Navy attack the continental United States. There was significant pressure on FDR to do something to and get Japanese Americans. So he signed the executive order, and it displaced 120,000 Japanese people off the West Coast into the interior of the country, into concentration camps. Most of the people who were displaced lost everything. Japantown became a ghost town. There was nobody there, no businesses, no residents. People lost their homes, businesses, all their personal possessions. They were only allowed to carry what they could physically carry in their hands, which is usually 2 suitcases. Just below the bent spire is a large stone. It's actually sandstone. It was a gift from Japan to commemorate the initial immigrants. It's called the Issei stone, or first generation stone. And then just to the right of the bent spire, it's a little difficult to see, there's a low granite wall. On that wall are inscribed Japanese values. So the immigrants, when they initially asked for permission from the Japanese government to come to America to work, were said, okay, we're going to let you go, but we want you to do 2 things. We want you to assimilate and acculturate on the one hand, and on the other hand, we want you to preserve samurai values. So on that wall are Japanese phrases that are the samurai values, such as shigata ganai, which means it can't be helped, gaman is perseverance, on, giri, duty, honor, things like that. So you'll see those words etched into the stone.
So that stone illustrates the fact that there are still continuing ties between Japantown and Japan. So the Japanese consul who's based in San Francisco will come down to Japantown once or twice a year. Not as much as I'd like, but occasionally comes in person. And as part of that person's usually a male person so far, part of their jurisdiction, and to maintain that connection. And there are people who are associated with Japantown who do business with Japan. We have first generation Japanese American immigrants in Japantown. Of course, not the ones from the 1890s, but but we're still getting some, we have second generation, third generation. I'm aware of fifth generation, and we probably have some sixth generation now. I don't know. Have we hit six yet?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
definitely 5.
we're at 5 right now. The interesting thing for the Japanese American community from a demographic point of view is that most of them are Hapas now. So they're half Japanese American, half Japanese ethnicity and half something else.
Jan, a little bit more explanation of where Hapa came from. It's actually half of a Hawaiian term. As the United States started populating Hawaii, the Hawaiians would call the half-breed children Hapahali, which was half white, and it wasn't a compliment. It was basically an insult. I think it's, my wife is Sansei, third generation, and she's a little bit, but definitely our children who are Hapa, the Yonsei kids really own it. They proudly wear it, the t-shirts and hats or whatever,